Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About House. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
Okay, we are going to talk about the great land sale that is going to get millions of more homes built and drive down home prices and affordable homes. We're going to talk about that. Okay, we're going to jump right into this is kind of a new thing. There's this senator, his name is Mike Lee. I found out about this from this tweet by a guy named Shamath Palihapitiya. He is a tech billionaire. And this is what it says. Here's an incredible proposal by Senator Mike Lee. This would direct the U.S. government to sell land for the explicit purpose of increasing our housing supply. It includes the appropriate protections for national parks and the like. It's a no-brainer win-win. I dispute that statement, but we'll talk about that later. U.S. government collects revenues they can direct to paying down our debt while increasing the supply of land that can help decrease housing prices and increase the number of homeowners. Pass this now. Now, Juana, what I'm going to do, so for all of you out there watching, we've got a bunch of data that we're going to talk about. We've got the actual document where it talks about, and then we're going to show a map of the U.S. and where this land is so that you can look at it depending on where you live and see if, is this something that's going to affect you. Now, Juana, we're going to all go through some of the points here in the thing. Okay, and then we'll run through these. Okay, so the actual deal is they're only actually proposing to sell between 0.5% and 0.75% of actual government-owned land. Okay. So 0.5 to 0.75%. Now, there's a lot of it. I think the federal government, between parks and just land they own, is like $400 billion.
Well, so the federal government owns parks. They own national forests. They own military bases.
Yeah.
They own, of course, federal buildings and other federal monuments and that sort of thing. So the federal government owns a lot of land that's more than just open land. They have, there's grazing land, there's all kinds of land. So please understand that that's not what they're talking about. They're not talking about land that's currently being used. They are talking about land that is not being used. And I kind of challenge that a little bit because they're talking about BLM land, which is Bureau of Land Management land. And a lot of that land is actually used for grazing. So I think that's an interesting thing.
Okay, so the background here is there's a shortage of 4.5 million houses, which we all know. Unless you're Crash Bro, you think there's way too many houses, and a shortage of 7.1 million affordable and available homes. And there's a whole bunch of information here. We're going to go over this one time. I just wanted to point out that background thing. So what we're going to do, let's talk about the feasibility of this, okay? And I have a whole bunch of actual data that I pulled up. Now, let's start with this. The construction industry, you're a home builder. You're actually the CEO of Banana Home Builders. You're the 12th largest nationwide home builder. And you build homes in the West Coast, okay? What is it like at your company with all the construction workers who are sitting around with nothing to do, right? Mm-hmm. Because you don't have enough land to build on. What is that like?
So first of all, builders very seldom have their own building crews anymore. They sub that out to subcontractors.
Okay.
And subcontractors have other things to do besides build for the builders. So if you are currently under contract to buy a new home, maybe you've noticed this. What happens is the trades make their rounds, kind of like doctors do. You know how doctors at the hospital, they make their rounds patient to patient, right? Okay, well, trades do the same thing. They make their rounds builder to builder. So maybe the electrician is at this builder on Monday and at this builder on Tuesday and at this builder on Wednesday. The plumber, same thing. So that's kind of how that goes. So the main challenge that builders are having is not the lack of land. The main challenge that builders are having is the lack of workers. Partly because, like I said, they no longer employ them directly. They employ them indirectly through their subcontractors. And their subcontractors have other clients besides each individual builder.
Here's a stat I found. The construction industry faces persistent shortage of skilled workers. In the U.S., the National Association of Home Builders reported in 2024 that 75% of builders cited labor shortages as a major issue.
Right. So a couple things to point out there. The average construction worker is over 50 years old. And the second thing to point out is there are all kinds of programs to send people to college and not a whole lot of programs to send people to trade schools. So we are running out of skilled tradespeople because we're not training them. We're pushing people either in the service industry or into into college, but not into the trades. So we're running low on tradespeople.
It says it's 75% of a major issue. So not, it's on the other 25% are doing great.
Correct.
It's just not a major issue.
Yes.
Here's the interesting one. Aging workers are retiring faster than new ones are entering, and training programs haven't kept pace. So that doesn't set, the outlook for that is probably not good, right?
Right.
Okay.
So it takes time to train people, just so we're very clear on that. It takes quite a long time to train electricians, plumbers, and so on. And we don't have a really good system for apprenticeships, for journeymen, for all of these things that it takes to create these, create master carpenters and skilled electricians and plumbers and that sort of thing.
Okay, here's another one. Even if land is made available, there aren't enough workers to build homes at scale. Okay, the bottleneck slows construction timelines, drives up costs, making projects less viable. In example, 2023, the U.S. construction industry had over 400,000 unfilled jobs, gap that persists into 2025. Let's talk about this, Juana.
So I want to touch on that for a moment.
Yeah.
As far as not being able to build homes at scale. So there are several companies that try to build modular homes, right, where they're basically building homes in a factory and then taking them apart and shipping them and then putting them back together on site. So there were all kinds of innovations, if you will, that people were trying to do to overcome this problem. Just so you know, this is not a new problem. This is not 10, 20, 30, 50 years old. This is older than that. And I can prove that because those of you that study history a little bit maybe remember the Sears and Roebuck catalog, and you could buy a home from Sears and Roebuck and you got to put it together yourself. And these homes can be visited today. They are some of the most prestigious homes in San Francisco. They are some of the Victorians in San Francisco. So they would build these beautiful homes. They were kit homes. So this has been revisited as far as kit homes, and it really has not taken off at this point.
And actually, a bunch of companies that were doing this shut down.
Yes, they
did.
did.
They closed their doors, said we can't do it profitably. A lot of hurdles with that.
Yes.
But Wanda, let's run through this scenario. You have a home building company. You can build homes near where there are jobs, schools, and amenities on more expensive land, or you can go further out, way, way far out. Which homes are going to sell more? The homes that are near the city where all your people and supplies are, the homes that are really far away.
Let me think on that. So obviously the homes that are near goods and services, right? That makes a lot of sense.
They're going to sell for more money.
Sure.
Is it going to cost you about the same to build the same house here versus out in the sticks?
Yes, so your material is going to be the same. Your labor is going to be pretty similar. You will have a harder time getting labor out in the sticks.
Okay.
For the same reason, because people don't want to commute to work that far. So it will be actually harder to build out there. So even though maybe your land might be a little bit less expensive out there, you'll have a harder time building out there, and then you'll have a harder time selling out there. So if you're going to spend the same or more money to build, then it makes sense to be able to sell those homes for more money, and you can do that where there are goods and services versus out in the sticks.
Okay, material costs have increased 20-30% since 2019. We all know about this. Even with available land, securing reliable and affordable materials delays project and reduces profitability, discouraging builders. One, there's a shortage of material. It's not like the land magically creates more lumber and materials for these builders to go build. And we're also limited by labor. So we have more expensive stuff. If we did build at a higher rate, with the same amount of material, wouldn't there be more competition for the building materials, and would the cost of those go up?
Right.
So that is another thing that would put pressure on it. This is what's super interesting. So we know that the median home in the U.S. is about $415,000, $420,000 right now, right? Median home price in the U.S.
is what?
$415,000, $420,000.
Right.
Okay. Right. Median. Now remember the article. They want to build. There were 7 million affordable homes short. Okay, beyond labor and materials, other costs like permitting, financing, compliance add up. The National Association of Home Builders is estimating 2024 building a single-family home averages $400,000 to $500,000 in many markets, excluding land costs. So if you're trying to build homes under $400,000, you have to buy the land, you have to spend $400,000 to $500,000, and you're going to sell them for under $400,000. Are you going to build them or no?
No,
Is it
you're
a bad
not.
idea?
You're not. And remember, builders are in the business of making money, as all of us are. So they are going to look to build where it makes financial sense to do so. Now, not only does there have to be demand, but then there also has to be profit in this, right? So they're going to build where they're going to make the most money. So they can build this home here and make, let's say, $100,000 on the home, or they can build it over here and make $250,000 on the home. Which one do you think that they're going to build? Now, just for the record, builders don't generally have those kinds of margins, but I'm just making a point. So builders do want to make a profit, so they will build where they can make the most money without consideration for people's political agendas or other agendas.
Okay. With a median home price at 412.3 in quarter two 2025, median household incomes are around 81,000. Homes are often unaffordable for many buyers, reducing demand and builder incentive. High costs mean builders prioritize high margin profits, even established areas, not affordable homes on newly sold land, especially if it's remote. So the idea that you're going to create, because we're going to show you the map and then you're going to realize where this land is, that there's land sitting right next to where you live that has been locked up by the federal government in the middle of Orange County, right? Once this land opens up, the builders will all rush in there and go build a bunch of affordable houses. Here's another one. You find out that there's a new housing development 30 miles out of town, okay? And you drive out there and it's farmland, and you get out there and there's this brand new subdivision, but there's nothing around it. It's just a subdivision in the middle of nowhere. But the house is $50,000 less than if you lived 30 miles closer to like a town with Starbucks and schools and a grocery store nearby.
And your work.
You don't have to commute every day, right? It's probably worth the $50,000 to stay, isn't it?
It is. And that's a huge consideration because we all want to live somewhere where it's a reasonable commute to work, right? Work is someplace that we have to go to every day. Even those of us that maybe work remotely some of the time, I think all of us have to actually go someplace physically to work at least some of the time. So we don't want to have to drive for a long time. And that is a serious consideration. The other consideration is, like you said, maybe having to take the kids to school, maybe access to medical care, all kinds of things, all kinds of services and amenities that we all use. So it's important to us how much of our life do we have to spend driving to something that maybe we need on a regular basis.
Housing demand is concentrated in urban and suburban areas with jobs, schools, and amenities, but much of the land proposed for sale is often rural or ex-urban. For example, in the U.S., 80% of job growth occurs in metropolitan areas per BLS data. So they're not going to be building, it's not like they're going to go create a city in the middle of nowhere and just build a downtown and a bunch of restaurants and stores and then say, okay, come on, guys, it's all here, right?
Okay, so China tried that and it didn't work out. They have ghost cities.
Yeah, they have tons of ghost cities. Here's another thing. Local governments often lack funds to support infrastructure expansion, and developers may be required to fund these costs, which can exceed $100,000 per home in remote areas. So if we've got $400,000 to $500,000 to build a house, another $100,000 to get utilities to each house per house, and this idea of an affordable home is we're not really building anything that's going to help housing. We're just driving up home costs, aren't we?
Well, so kind of to that point, you can go build homes out in Kansas. Okay, that's totally fine. And, this happens a lot in Middle America where there's plenty of opportunity to build homes out there. And there are homes out there that are very affordably priced. But what are you lacking out there? You're lacking economic opportunity. So that's the reason why those areas are not populated. So the fact that there's land available to build homes, the fact that there are homes out there and they're affordable, but without economic opportunity, you don't have anything. And the places that have economic opportunity are already densely populated and they lack land, whether it's government owned or otherwise.
Home builders prioritize areas with strong demand driven by jobs, school, healthcare, amenities like shops, parks, remote areas. 90% of builders prioritize locations with access to employment centers.
Of course, that's what I just said, economic opportunities.
Right. That's why I was reading that was in there. Here's another one. Buyers want to live within the 30 to 45 minute commute of work per NAR data. Remote land often exceeds this, reducing its appeal.
So if you live in Vegas, That is absurd. We do not want to drive. None of us are going to drive 30 to 45 minutes to work. Okay, in Vegas, if we're driving 20 minutes to work, that's a long commute. Okay, we don't generally do that because we have the luxury of having beautiful neighborhoods all the way around the valley. So we are able to find a home that is within a reasonable proximity of our place of work.
Okay, so I'm going to show the map. This is all everything in red is federal land. If you look at basically the eastern 2/3 of the country, there's not that much red. It's mostly land is already owned by people. Like people have bought that land.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they own the land. And there are some areas in red that are maybe military bases, national parks, national forests, things like that.
Mountains.
Mountain ranges. You can see there the Appalachian Mountains. There's kind of pretty much all red there. They're not going to build anything there.
Well,
now out west, though, out west, it's sky's the limit, right? Okay, let's look where all this land is. Let's start with Alaska because it's down there in the bottom left. Mm-hmm. In case you don't know, that's not where Alaska really is. Alaska's it's further north. Okay.
Past Canada.
And it's much bigger than that. Now, there's a lot of land, but probably nothing even has roads to it. Like this is the middle of nowhere.
So Alaska is beautiful. It doesn't have a massive population. So the idea that builders are going to want to build, entire communities in Alaska, that's probably not a good use of their money. It's not that Alaska necessarily couldn't use new homes, but not to the tune of selling a substantial amount of land in Alaska. Most of Alaska has lots of beautiful mountains and forests and all kinds of wonderful wildlife, but it's not someplace that is going to spring up a whole massive city because of lack of economic opportunity. Alaska has it has oil, it has lots of natural resources, but that's not enough to drive huge populations there.
The whole state of Nevada is red. We have the highest percentage of any state that's federally owned.
Right.
Now, that little dot at the bottom, that white circle, it looks really small, but it's pretty much most of the Las Vegas Valley.
Right. Well, most of Nye County is federal land.
Yeah, almost all except for Prump, right? The whole county's federal land.
Yeah.
But, we still have issues, right? You just can't, we don't have an unlimited amount of home builders in Southern Nevada.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind is that people don't realize is, but Nevada has a lot of mining. So some of that land might be part of that. Nevada has a lot of ranching. So a lot of people are not aware of that. So a lot of that land is used for grazing.
Even though it's federally owned,
right?
It's grazing,
right? And then remember, those are exceptions. So they can't sell the grazing land and that sort of thing, and they can't sell the forest in Alaska and that sort of thing. So even though you see all that red, it's not necessarily available for sale. Nye County, to a large extent, is owned by the federal government, not only because it's owned by the federal government, but has a lot of military land there that doesn't exist. If those of you that know about Area 51, there you go, a place that doesn't exist. And so there's a lot of that going on. So when you're looking at this map, you're also seeing the federal land on which military bases sit, which other Defense Department installations sit, and that sort of thing.
If you look at the West Coast, you'll see that most of the coast, except for where it's national parks, national forests, is all is already developed and everything. But remember, as you go further inland, and any of you who live on the West Coast know, as you go further inland, the amount of stuff there drops off pretty fast.
Sure.
Like if you go east of California, you're basically in the middle of a desert until you get to Yuma, Arizona.
Right.
And it's not really feasible that you would go and live 50 miles or 40 miles east of San Diego to buy a house for $50,000 less. How are you going to get water, electricity, stores, all these other things way out there? Because San Diego's home prices are too high. Now, here's an example, Lana. The idea that it would bring down home prices because more people there would be more affordable homes in other areas. A home in Coronado, median home in Coronado right now is $4.8 million. If you drive across the bridge to Barrio Logan, the median home price there is $750,000. Mm-hmm. And it's just 2 miles away. So it's not like, oh, there's this substitute of I could just drive across the bridge and be in Barrio Logan. It's kind of a historic area, but it's definitely not Coronado, right? So the idea that if you went even further east, all of a sudden you could just build super cheap homes, you really can't do that.
No, and remember, people want to live where there's economic opportunity. So, if you've ever driven from Vegas to Southern California, you drive through Baker, through Barstow, through Victorville, and these are very small communities, and then there's really nothing outside of them. Well, there's plenty of land there to build homes, and you don't see homes being built there. Why? Because there's not economic opportunity. People are going to be closer to major economic centers like Los Angeles, San Diego, Riverside County, and things like that, where there's more economic activity.
Almost all of Texas is not government owned; it's privately owned, and West Texas, especially, is very rural. It's all available; it's all open. Builders can already go buy land. There's actually more land available for building right now than the government wants to release. All the land that is owned privately could be built on. A builder could go knock on somebody's door and say, hey, I see you're selling all this land. You have a big sign up that says, 80 acres for sale or whatever. I want to put a subdivision out here. But nobody's buying that land. It's not like there's no more land. It's all owned. Everything's got something built on it. There's tons of land. Look at North Dakota. There's 200 and something thousand people in North Dakota. But it's a huge state. Most of the state's just empty, just sitting there empty. People could go up there and build houses right now. Builders go to West Texas. Eastern Colorado. Look at that. The whole eastern part of the state is basically, there's nothing there. If you fly into Denver, look down, there's nothing. There's literally zero. And then western Kansas, western Nebraska, there's nothing, almost very little in those parts of those states. And nobody's building there. There's not builders trying to build subdivisions. Right. So you can kind of see from this chart that there's not really releasing some land here and there is not really, oh my gosh, now the builders are like, the relief is off, right?
Right. So there's a lot of privately owned land. But the thing that I really want to talk about as well is that when the federal government does release land, and people buy the land, they're generally land speculators, and they will hold on to the land until the land appreciates in value and somebody makes them an offer on the land that makes sense for them. So most of the time that land will sit vacant for more than 20 years. Even builders who purchase land, they don't build on it right away. And you can see that builders will have land on the books. For example, you can look at KB Homes. They've got land on the books that they don't build on for a long time. Most builders try not to actually acquire land until they're ready to build on it, because land costs money and they would rather put the money that they have to work building homes. So what happens is they will go out and buy land when they're ready to develop that area. And they're not ready to develop that area until that area becomes an area that shows economic promise, so that their homes will be valuable and they can get the return on investment from building the home that they want.
The only way affordable housing has ever worked is government subsidies. Government's giving money to builders is a subsidy that would have to build at a loss to build homes. Most builders aren't interested in that because the subsidies generally aren't enough for the amount of resources it takes versus just actually building in the free market. So anyway, that's all the data that I had.
Okay, I just want to talk about one thing.
Yeah, talk about anything you want.
Okay, one more thing. All of you know that inventory is rising across the nation, right? We can all agree on that. So tell me, Todd, if everybody is talking about how real estate is about to crash because inventory levels are soaring, what makes us think that we need more homes?
Right, I know, yeah.
Which, by the way, I do think that we need more homes.
As Juan is joking about the
yes.
Rising. All they show you is like the last couple years where we're at the lowest inventory we've had since like the 70s, the lowest amount of homes, and what we've gone to like in the last 2 years. And then what they don't do is they don't show you 2019, that we still have less homes for sale than 2019. And then we have less, and we have 3 million homes less for sale than we had in 2008. So yeah, no, there's not an excess amount of homes that's getting ready to crash the housing market. But this is funny because this is the opposite extreme of the crash bros. This is the dire, oh my gosh, we have to do something to get more homes. Let's just go release some more land to the builders. And the builders who are just have all this lumber piled up, they have no idea what to do with it. And people are sitting around that they're paying. We'll just send them out to Hick County and they can build a subdivision out in the middle of nowhere. And it's just like the movie Field of Dreams, right? If you build it, they will come. But unfortunately, that only works in like fantasy. Like that was literally a fantasy movie. It was based on a book, but it was a fantasy. It wasn't real. Like,
okay, wait a minute. It worked in the case of Disneyland. Okay, so give them their due.
No, but Disneyland that's a little different. They were talking about pretty unique theme park.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but the point is that this program to release land, it's very little land as opposed to what the federal government owns. The land that is available to be released is not in areas that have housing shortages for the most part, and it's not going to make any difference regarding homes being available in your metropolitan area. It is probably not going to make any difference to the housing stock in general because, like I said, builders take a long time before they go out and they purchase the land to build on it. And people who own this land, the speculators, they tend to own the land for a long time before they sell it to a builder. So that's what we wanted to share with you because this is in the news. It's all over social media. And so we know that you're interested in this. So I hope this was interesting and helpful to you.
Oh, there's one more thing.
Oh, sorry.
Also, there is all this stuff going around about the millions of homes that have been built that are just sitting there. Like, if builders are still trying to sell homes they've built, they're not going to want to run out and buy some more land and build some more homes. They don't have any money to do that because they have to sell these other homes first. We joke about that, but that's actually not the truth because the total number of homes for sale includes as soon as a builder has a dirt lot available for sale, it counts as a home for sale, even though there's no physical house there.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, hope you had a good time. Remember to like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video, leave us your real estate related comments, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.